isn't what's happening right now exactly what the founders were hoping for in a sort of a worst case syndrome? Our government is not meant to be easy. It's not meant to be effective. It's not meant to do things efficiently. It was set up to split that power up, in my eyes anyways, to make things difficult, to make them uneasy, to bring out the partisanship in a lot of cases so that one part acts as a check and balance to the other. And that's really one of the brightest things that the founders did by dividing up that power to say, here's what the presidency has, here's what the Congress has, here's what the House of Representatives does, here's what the U.S. Senate does. And all of those powers and privileges of each of those entities, and including the judiciary, which I got other thoughts on that right about now, but they were all supposed to jealously guard that power. And now for the first time in a long time, we're seeing that actually in action. Whereas I look at it as, oh, government shut down? I don't see anything harm coming to me because I am a big believer in de Tocqueville's recounting of if there's a problem, just as you've been saying, the citizenry will rise up and solve that problem until it's done. So I look at what's happening in D.C. as being, as a political blogger, obviously much fun with too much to write about at any one time. But I also look at it as a shining example of the founders did their job, because you're seeing competing visions right now. You're seeing kind of conservative actions versus another group that is trying to take us to socialism, to be perfectly blunt. And you're seeing one check the other. I may not always like the kind of check being done here versus the check being done here, but the system actually is working as designed rather than just being a total mess. And I don't think a lot of people look at it that way. Am I being absurd?
Well, no, I think you're a student of history, and you're a student of the Constitution. And the fact is that our founders did put together a system with a high degree of brilliance about checks and balances, because in essence, the United States is all about the rights of the individual and not the rights of the state, and we're protecting the rights of the individual. And so I'm very much in line with that de Tocqueville vision also of volunteerism. I mean, volunteerism is, it is part of the American ethos. There's just no question about it. I'll give you one additional example in Newport, and this is, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. We're proposing a new community center in Newport. Our recreational facility, our recreational center, community center in Newport was established in 1967, and it hasn't changed. If you do the math, that's more than 50 years ago. And even when we started, it was just the National Guard Armory in town turned into a basketball court, and it was always, just not quite everything that the town needed, and that's 50-something years ago. Well, we've been studying this for a couple of years, and now we've got to the point, Great Study Committee has recommended a facility, and it's going to be awesome. It's going to be great for the town, not only as a place to gather for sports and recreation and for seniors, but also in our town for all those kids who may not be growing up in a great family. Here's a place that they can go after school and be taken care of in a nice, safe environment. Now, how is this volunteerism? Here's how it works. The facility is going to cost a fair amount of money. It's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $6 to $7 million. And $6 to $7 million is a large number for a town like Newport. Well, let's assume it's $6 million for the moment. We're in the midst now of funding that partly through taxes, but we're funding it primarily through non-taxpayer sources. We're coming together to do that. So we're getting private individuals, we're getting corporate sponsorships, doing bake sales, cookie sales, all sorts of ways that the community is getting involved so that they can have this wonderful facility and have a minimal burden on the taxpayers.
Sounds good. And again, it goes back to that de Tocqueville vision or the recounting. I wouldn't say it's his vision. It's just something that has always stuck with me. I mean, today we see the same thing that you're doing up in Newport. Really, I'd like to visit the Amish country. And obviously the great example there is New family, they're farmers, they need a barn. The whole community comes together.
Barn
They,
raising.
they throw up that barn lickety split, and now that problem is solved for that young family, and everybody goes away. That's essentially the way that I look at a lot of this stuff. And I think
Yeah.
too often we've outsourced that to government to take care of that, rather than having that self-responsibility to be able to do it ourselves. And I have to say, I have to compliment you a lot for doing exactly that, to say, if not anyone else, why not me? And getting that ball rolling. I think that's too often we have outsourced that responsibility and the motivation to government, to where it's just somebody else's job to do it
Well, it's
versus
there-
your obsession to do it. And GraniteGrok, we've gone past voluntary. We're well past obsession at this point. I just don't have a word for it.
Well, Skip, you put your finger on something really important, because over time, if we let government do more and more of these things for us, that individual's capability, the strength to do these things, the incentive to do them, kind of evaporates and atrophies. And so we need to keep building that skill set, that drive, if you will. And the one other thing I will say is that in pushing this Newport initiative forward, because the Sunshine Initiative is really moving in a great way. A couple of observations. One is this opportunity to lead a change like this is available to other people in other towns as well. And I think they're going to be surprised if they put their shoulder against the wheel, just how far and fast they can go. And so it's really exciting. The other thing that I have found is that once you get something like this going and you get some momentum behind it, it's instead of one person and two people and three people, all of a sudden there is a movement. People say, hey, I can volunteer and I can make this thing happen. It is so exciting, and the positive energy around this is just so amazing. It's something like I've never seen before.
Well, excellent. I'm happy to see that. I'm happy to see that a private individual is trying to push this forward. And I think at this point there's somebody standing over there that probably wants your attention. So I want to say thank you very much for taking a number of minutes with GraniteGrok, and we will put this up. All I ask in return is send off some dispatches for posting at GraniteGrok on how this de Tocqueville type project is working out for you folks for posting.
Be absolutely delighted, Skip. It's a huge pleasure talking with you. Be delighted to talk with you anytime. I think you're doing some great work here at GraniteGrok. And I come back to your de Tocqueville example, which I think is a really shining example of American volunteerism, the American spirit, individuality, and really an optimistic view of what our country can be.
Very good. Well, Jay Lucas, thank you for spending time with GraniteGrok.
Thank you, Skip.
All right.
Grok TV.